Welcome for joining us on this stream slash video recording. I'm Roger of Werewolf Radar, and if you don't know what we do, we're a Paranormal Preparedness podcast. I am going to rank various cryptids, 10 of them, all together, see where they rank, you know? So let's go to the window. Bam! Alright, here we go. So let's go over the list. We have Werewolf, Jackalope, make them bigger, there we go, Skinwalker, Chupacabra, one of the forms of Chupacabra, we're going dog form with spikes on this one, Vampires, look at those canines, Orang Pendek, the most human-like of all the great apes of myth and legend. We have Thunderbirds, put you next to Vampire Mouth there. Nessie, good old Nessie, put him right there, we go. American Orang Pendek, or Bigfoot, that one's just enjoying the snow a little bit. And then the Windigo. So what we are going to do is we're going to find out who's S tier, who is unbeatable, who is A tier, who is the best, B tier, better than average, C, average, and then D, you're not getting a degree. Okay, we need C's at our college. We got 10 of them: Werewolf, Jackalope, Skinwalker, Chupacabra, Thunderbird, Vampire, Orang Pendek, Nessie, Bigfoot, and the Windigo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I just had a count. I wasn't sure really how many were there. Okay, so let us start. We begin with, just close your eyes. Alright, Nessie. So let's read a little bit about Nessie. I mean, already we know, Scottish, water creature, possibly a big ball of eels, which I think is pretty cool. So already with that, you have the history, you have the lore, you have many sightings, even to 2020. So we're at least a C. I'm maybe climbing it up to a B, and here's why. Because there are so many sonar readings down below that it shows something huge there. But it could also be a gigantic ball of eels, or an unidentified species of eels. I'm a bigger proponent of the eel theory, but to have a 30-foot eel is awesome, and that's why already, and we can switch this, I'm gonna go put Nessie in the B tier, I think. I don't know, let's read a little bit more about Nessie. The history of Nessie. The creature has been affectionately called Nessie since the 1940s. The first modern discussions of a sighting of a strange creature in the loch may have been the 1870s, when Dr. Mackenzie claimed to see something wiggling and churning the water, which we're going with eel right now. That's a good eel description. Which, I mean, overall, if it is just an eel, let's go back here. I think we might move it down to C. So the account of Dr. Mackenzie, though, was not published until 1934. The best known article that first attracted a great deal of attention about the creature was published in 1933 about a large beast or whale-like fish. The article by Alex Campbell, water bailiff for Loch Ness. What is a water bailiff? A water bailiff is a law enforcement responsible for policing bodies of water such as rivers, lakes, and coasts. Okay. All bailiffs are bastards, but I'll trust you on this one. So you saw a big eel or like a huge fish, whale fin, or he was all like maybe talking about how a whale breaches, which then still could be an eel. Discussed a sighting by Adel McKay of an enormous creature with the body of a whale rolling in the water in the loch while she and her husband John were driving on A82 in 1933. This is the first time the word monster appeared. In history, we have 565. The earliest report of the monster in Loch Ness appears in the Life of Saint Columba by Odaman, written in the 6th century AD. According to the writer, Saint Columba was staying in the land of the Picts, which is Scotland, with his companions when he encountered local residents burying a man by the river Ness. They explained that the man was attacked by a water beast and dragged him under. They had tried to rescue him, but he was killed. Columba sent a follower to swim the river. The beast approached him, but Columba made the sign of the cross and said,
"Go no further. Do not touch the man. Go back at once."
The creature stopped, as if been pulled by ropes. So, I guess if you're just being stopped by the Lord's Prayer, nah, you're just average. I'm looking for cryptids that are not stopped by anything for B and up. But still, cool. Let's move on. Random choices again. Alright, go down. The Jackalope. Look at him. Noble beast. The Jackalope. Okay. So the Jackalope is a mythical animal of North American folklore. A fearsome creature, says Wikipedia. Described as a jackrabbit with antelope horns. The word jackalope is a portmanteau of jackrabbit and antelope. Let's see the origins. All ready for this? I think it is a rabbit that could charge you, do some damage. But overall, like, what's it gonna do? I'm putting it in C, B already. It's definitely not A or S class. So, stories or descriptions of animal hybrids have appeared in many cultures worldwide. The Persians, medievals, you got the unicorn, various other horned rabbits in Europe. It really doesn't have too much of an actual history. It just seems to be kind of like a imagination that carried over with Europeans when they settled the West. However, in Central America, mythological references to a horned rabbit creature can be found in Holcol legends. The Holcol oral traditions have passed down tales of a horned rabbit and the deer horns from the rabbit. Alright. The rabbit and deer were paired, though not combined as a hybrid, as day signs in the calendar of the Mesoamerican period of the Aztecs, as twins, brothers, or even the sun and moon. Okay, so really it is kind of like an imagination, but then you see this picture of a rabbit with one of the Ploloma viruses, and like it's got horns coming out of its mouth. So like definitely a real thing. I think Jackalope goes in B because it's definitely probably had real, it was probably diseased, but it went so far as to make it a god in Mesoamerican tales. So if you're a god, you're B. If you're a monster that can be stopped by God, you're C. I think that's fair. Where are we going next? Okay, so we go with Orang Pendek. Quickly, to the internet of information. Okay, in Indonesian folklore, the Orang Pendek, Indonesian for short person, is the most common name given to a creature said to inhabit remote mountainous forests of the island of Sumatra. It is also known as the Suku Anak Dalam, or Children of the Inner Forest. Dutch colonists have said to have seen it. Dutch settlers in the early 20th century provided Westerners with their modern introduction to the orang pendek-like animals of Sumatra. One account in particular is widely reported. Mr. Van Heervoorden, who described an encounter while he was surveying the land in 1923.
I discovered a dark and hairy creature on a branch. The centaur was also hairy on the front of its body. The color there was a little lighter on the back. The very dark hair on its head fell just below the shoulder blades, or even almost to the waist. Had it been standing, its arms would have reached little over its knees. They were long for, but its legs seemed to me rather short. I did not see its feet, but I did see some toes, which were shaped in a very normal manner. There was nothing repulsive or ugly about its face, nor was it at all ape-like.
Okay, so I think this man might want to plow Orang Pendek. So, legitimate creature, can't be stopped by God, and a Dutch colonist wants to plow it. It goes in B tier. Goes in B tier. Alright, pick randomly again. And stop. Windigo. Native American of the Northeast tail. Let's look it up. The Windigo already is probably A tier, and here's why. Windigo eats you to pieces. Windigo ain't gonna stop for shit. It rips you apart. The Windigo is part of the traditional belief system of a number of Algonquin-speaking peoples, including a number of people I can't pronounce, except for the Cree and the Innu, and the Naskapi, the Saltui, and the Chippewa. That's not, I think, what they prefer to be called. Although descriptions can vary somewhat, common to all these cultures is the view that the Windigo is malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural being. So demigod. They were strongly associated with winter, north, coldness, famine, and starvation. Basil H. Johnston, a native teacher and scholar from Ontario, gives a description. The Windigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation. Its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones, with its bones pushing out against its skin. Its complexion, the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into their sockets. The Windigo looked like a gaunt skeleton recently disinterred from the skeleton. From the grave, I can read. What lips it had were tattered and bloodied, unclean and suffering from suppuration of the flesh. The Windigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay, decomposition, of death, and corruption. I mean, awesome. We have, in some traditions, humans overpowered by greed could turn into Windigos, so it's also just a curse. The myth just served as a method of encouraging cooperation and moderation. Other sources say Windigos were created when humans resorted to cannibalism to survive. Humans could also turn into Windigos by being in contact with them for too long. So you could just be neighbors with a Windigo, and you could turn into a Windigo. So I think right now, we have our first A class. Put it in the A. Windigo is an A. Let's go randomly. Stop. Vampire. So vampires we all know a little bit about. Strigoi. There's Chinese vampires. There are Indonesian vampires. There's ones that hop. There's all sorts of crazy vampires. Every culture has a necrophage. Not a necrophage, but a phage that feeds on humans. God stops them though. And like Nessie, if God stops you, you're not all that fancy. Like you just wear a cross. So already I'm thinking like vampires, you're just a more evil aristocrat. And because of that, we're putting you in C right away. Let's see if some other information, because you have so many ways to kill it. Fire, sunlight, stakes, silver bullets, just crosses like we discussed, holy water. They sleep all day, so like in the summer, wherever you are, you're sleeping most of the time. You're maybe out killing for like 6 hours, maybe 8 hours. And that's not enough time to get yourself some food, then protect yourself for the vampire hunters in the day. But you're super strong. So, I mean, you can also seduce really well. And Orang Pendek seduced. And that put him in the B class. So maybe vampires are a B tier. They're not A, they're not S, but they're close. So I think I'm fine with that. We'll put vampires in the B tier. 5 left, halfway done. Skinwalkers, badasses of the American Southwest. Alright, let's begin with a little info. If you're not sure what a skinwalker is, in Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. This term is never used for healers, because there's also good witches, and they do a lot of good. I'm gonna butcher this in Navajo language. Yi na dolos shi translates to, by means of it, it goes on all fours. While perhaps the most common variety in horror fiction by non-Navajo people, the skinwalker is one of several varieties in Navajo culture. Specifically, they are a type of anti-genol. The language of skinwalkers is not well understood outside Navajo culture, mostly due to reluctance to discuss the subject with outsiders. Navajo people are reluctant to reveal skinwalker lore with non-Navajos, or to discuss it among any of those who they do not trust. And rightfully so, it's your culture, protect it, we're just rating them. Nothing bad. Skinwalkers in legend. Animals associated with witchcraft usually include tricksters such as coyotes. However, it may also include other creatures, usually associated with death or bad omens. They might also possess living animals or people and walk around in their bodies by locking eyes with them. So kind of vampire-ish. So already we're putting skinwalkers kind of in a B tier. Skinwalkers may be male or female. Skinwalker stories told among Navajo children may be complete life and death struggles that end in either Skinwalker or Navajo killing the other, or partial encounters stories that end in stalemates. So it's a tricky thing that's always trying to get you. No stories of God stopping him. Some Navajo children take European folk stories and substitute skinwalkers for generic killers like the Hook. Okay, so you not only stopped your skinwalker, you stayed alive. The Christians try to stop you and you were like, nah, you're S tier. S tier for that. Okay, let us continue. Who do we have left? 4 left. Werewolves, Chupacabra, Thunderbirds, and Bigfoot. Let's just start with Chupacabra. Let's go south of the border. Alright, Chupacabras. Let's find out. Now, there's lots of myths about Chupacabras, and we all know some of them. My favorite is they came from either aliens or a research lab in Puerto Rico. So, Chupacabra, literally goat sucker from Spanish, is a legendary creature of folklore of parts of the Americas. With its first purported sightings reported in Puerto Rico in 1995, the name comes from the animal's reported vampirism. The Chupacabra is said to attack and drink the blood of livestock, including goats. Physical descriptions of the creature vary. It is purportedly a heavy creature, the size of a small bear, with a row of spines reaching from the neck to the base of the tail. Eyewitnesses have been claimed in Puerto Rico and have since been reported as far as Maine. Far south is Chile, even outside in Russia and the Philippines. Chupacabras be spreading, and they're new too. First reported attack attributed 1995, so where are we now? 25 years? Chupacabra has just blown up. We're putting him in A class. You can't stop a spread like that. He might be S class. Let's read a little bit more, because I think I made that judgment call a little bit too soon. Okay, so, in Puerto Rico, 1995, 8 sheep were discovered dead, 3 puncture wounds in the chest area, completely drained of blood. A few months later, eyewitness Madalena Tolentino reported seeing the creature in Puerto Rican town of Canovanas, when as many as 150 farm animals and pets were killed. Killing spree, Jesus Christ. Wow, yep, you're A tier. You're A tier. Started in Puerto Rico and then everywhere. Plus you have this creepy history of possibly being a lab experiment creature, broke out and now claiming the world as their own. Awesome tale. Alright, so now we have Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds! I don't know if that's the theme song, but I feel I was close. So, Thunderbirds. The Thunderbird is a legendary creature of certain North American indigenous peoples, history, and culture. It is considered a supernatural being of power and strength. It is especially important and frequently depicted in the art, songs, and oral histories of many cultures of the Pacific Northwest. Algonquin. In Algonquin mythology, the Thunderbird controls the upper world, while the underworld is controlled by the underwater panther or great horned serpent. So, you're just straight up a god. Where else? The Thunderbird throws lightning, so Zeus-like powers. In Menominee culture in northern Wisconsin, tell of a great mountain that floats in the western sky, on which dwell the Thunderbirds. They control the rain, hail, and delight in fighting and deeds of greatness. They are the enemies of the great horned snakes, and have prevented these from overrunning the earth. So, hero. A tier already. What happens with the Chippewa people? In this version, the myth states that the Thunderbirds were created by Nanabozho, for the purpose of fighting the underwater serpents. They were also used to punish humans who broke moral rules. The Thunderbirds lived in 4 directions and arrived with other birds in the springtime. In the fall, they migrated south after the ending of the underwater spirit's most dangerous season. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We are definitely leaving Thunderbirds in the A tier because that is just too great. So, 2 left to go. Let's see what happens. Let's go with Bigfoot. Let's hit up Bigfoot. Bigfoot, we all know, American cryptid. He is literally seen in different forms throughout America. There are maps. We've seen, I've heard tales of scat. Werewolf Radar has literally heard, and we've played the recordings that show there is a large creature in the Pacific Northwest that seems to be speaking a Proto-American language, a proto-native language, and it is eerie. There's a lot of weird things, wood knockings, howlings, whoops, very but primate characteristics that we see in apes and chimpanzees, and those woods are thick. Wherever there's a thick wood or swamp in America, there are ape-like creatures in there. As far as I know, it's not stopped by God. You know, no one's saying like, I saw Bigfoot and I said the Lord's Prayer, and then he backed up like chains are pulling him, like Nessie. So you're better than Nessie. Are you better than a ring pendek? First of all, Virginia Wade, I believe is her name, did write a long 17-volume book, Making Love to You. So I think because of that, you exceed a ring pendek, and you go into the A tier. Now, let's finish with the namesake of the radar, the werewolf. Tale as old as time once again. Every culture has a werewolf. Greeks called it lycanthropy, leucanthropus, or wolf person. Typically transforms from human to wolf beast, larger than a normal wolf, almost a dire wolf. While the shapeshifters, of course, are in every culture, the werewolf really is a European thing, though. Where we go. History. The werewolf in folklore found in Europe harks back to a common development during the Middle Ages, an associated interpretation of pre-Christian mythology in Christian terms. Their underlying common origin can be traced to Proto-Indo-European mythology, where lycanthropy is reconstructed as an aspect of the initiation of the warrior class. So it kind of leads to the aggressiveness of the werewolf, to where like it's a warrior who turned evil, kind of. There's ways to become werewolves, of course. Various methods for becoming a werewolf has been reported, so you can become a werewolf using a magic salve if you wanted. But there's nothing fancy about it. Silver bullets, you could just blow it up like any of these things, except for some of the gods. But they're menacing. They're evil, they fight. They could definitely take any of these monsters. I'm putting it in the A tier. The werewolf, where Werewolf Radar gets her name, it's an A tier. There you have it. Just real basic ranking of monsters. We have S tier, Skinwalker, the harmful witch of the Navajo people. Watch out for him. A tier, Windigo, Chupacabra, Thunderbirds, Bigfoot, and werewolves. B tier, Jackalopes, Orang Pendek, and vampires. And in the C tier, we have Nessie. Nessie by itself, but to be fair, you were stopped by God and you haven't been making really a comeback, you've just been swimming. And you might be a ball of eels, so. Anyway, I've been Roger. Thanks for joining us on this video adventure ranking some cryptids, 10 cryptids altogether. If you want us to rank cryptids that you know about, let us know. Make sure you share the video, like and subscribe. Check out our podcast. If you want to support us, go to our Patreon. We give our proceeds to various civil rights organizations every month. And I want you to remember to punch the sky, Spaceman Joe.